make sure that was in place because this hour of Snowman in the Morning begins right about now.
I can't do it. We'll do it live. Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Mister, will you please wake up?
There they go. 3-2 pitch. Fly ball deep left field. Hooking down the line. Hooking. There she goes. A grand slam. The Blue Jays have done it again. Steve Pearce with a 2-out grand slam to beat Oakland 8-4. Another walk-off home run after Morales did it last night. Home run number 9. His sweetest as a Blue Jay in 2017.
This is Snowman in the Morning.
Hey, this promises to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Can't wait.
Are you kidding me? Do you believe it?
Yes, indeed, I believe it. This is a brand new hour of Snowman in the Morning, and we're going to talk some college football right about now with my good friend Conor O'Neill. He joins me right now. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Hope you're doing the same.
I am doing a whole lot better. All right. You're covering two schools this year, Duke and Wake Forest. So you're going to be busy, just like I'm going to be busy. Let's start with Wake Forest, defending division champions, but they're minus a big piece of their offense.
Yeah, things were kind of business as usual for the first 10 days of fall camp and all summer, really. And then everything got flipped on its head with the news that Sam Hartman's going to be out indefinitely with a non-football medical issue. I think there's a gray area between them, kind of towing the company line and saying it doesn't change their expectations. They still have the same team goals in mind, and also being realistic that knocks Wake Forest back. Sam Hartman is going into his 5th year. He's going to be a 3rd-year captain, which Dave Clawson, has quote unquote only been in Winston-Salem for 9 seasons, but I think he's only had one other 3rd-year captain in those 9 seasons. I mean, Sam's just so valuable and such a leader to his team. I did a story back in July that looks ominous when you go back and read it, but it lists the 5 most irreplaceable players on Wake's roster, and for me, he was a no-brainer at number 1.
Yeah.
So they've got to figure out what quarterback looks like indefinitely in the interim basis, and however long that is, it'll be Mitch Griffin, and he's a 3rd-year guy that has a lot of promise, but he's also not taken a significant snap in a game. So we'll see how that pans out and how he looks when he finally gets in there against VMI.
He's going to take a significant snap in that game and moving forward. So how different will this offense be with Griffiths under center as opposed to your 6th-year starter, Sam Hartman?
Yeah, the offense won't look much different. I mean, it's not only, Dave Clawson in his 9th season, but just about every member of the offensive coaching staff has been at Wake Forest for 9 years with Dave. The only member of the coaching staff that's changed on the offensive side of the ball is Wayne Lindenberg, the tight ends coach, and he's been there. I think this is going to be his 6th year. So that level of coaching staff continuity is kind of unheard of. Like it's really crazy how they've been able to keep that group together. And they recruit different skilled kids. It's not like they have a certain skill set for every kid they recruit, but the offense allows you to kind of plug and chug is a phrase that one of those players used with me during fall camp. It's just kind of, it's how after the 2019 season and going into 2020, they lost a lot of key players from their offense, and they were arguably a better offense for parts of 2020 than they were in 2019. It's just kind of a testament to the coaching staff there and the kids they recruit, the development that they go through. They're rarely breaking in, a 1st or 2nd-year player as a starter. It's always, even the guys that you look at and say, okay, he's a new starter. He's been in the program probably for 2 years already. So he knows the standard, that that culture, it gets built over time, and they've had the time to build it, and they've done a really good job with it.
Let's look at ninth-year head coach Dave Clawson. Talk about breeding familiarity. Talk about breeding a culture. It led them all the way to the ACC championship game in Charlotte against Pittsburgh, and now they're trying to repeat it. And if there is a team, and you and I have talked about this so many times over, if there's a team that can get hit with a casualty, that could get hit right between the eyes and get right back up and keep chugging, it's got to be Wake Forest. They've been doing it under Dave Clawson since he got there.
Yeah, it's certainly, it goes back to the culture. As much as I want to beat my head against the wall when they say it, they repeat next man up, and I think there's genuine belief that it is next man up when somebody goes down or when somebody graduates, somebody leaves early for the NFL, whatever it may be. They're equipped to handle some personnel losses. That's pretty remarkable for a school like Wake that is not reeling in top 25 classes year after year after year. They really do a nice job with the developmental piece of it, and that's why they're able to handle some attrition along the way.
Let's look at the defensive side of the ball, because defense is going to be important, especially playing in the ACC. Who stands out so far heading into the opening game against VMI?
Rondale Moore, their defensive end, I think is primed for a double-digit sack season. He led the team with 8 last year. He had 16.5 tackles for loss. He was, I thought, snubbed in a couple aspects of all ACC voting and that kind of thing. He gets overlooked because, you're going to find some really good defensive linemen in the ACC, right? You could pretty much make your preseason all ACC defensive line Clemson's defensive line, and nobody would really have an argument against that.
Yeah, nobody would blink.
Yeah. So I think Rondale, he's a 5th-year guy. He really broke out last year. And when you look at that defensive end spot that he plays, the last 2 guys have been draft picks out of that spot. Duke Ejiofor was a 6th-round draft pick of the Texans in 2018. And then Boogie Basham was a 2nd-round pick of the Bills in 2021. I'm not, I wouldn't write it in pen or write it in Sharpie that Rondale is going to be a draft pick here in like 7 or 8 months, whatever it may be. But I think he's got a pretty good shot of putting himself in there. I wrote something early in camp that I talked to him in Charlotte at the ACC's Media Day. Brad Lambert is a new defensive coordinator for Wake Forest, and he's coming from Purdue. Mm-hmm. Purdue had a defensive end last year who was the 30th overall pick in George Karlaftis. So I thought it was really interesting to ask Rondale and kind of confirm that he'd been watching Purdue tape from last year and kind of not comparing himself to George, but seeing the things they both do, kind of taking notes on how George fit into the defensive scheme and how he would fit into Brad Lambert's scheme. So I think that's really interesting. I think that Rondale will be put in a position to shine, maybe even more so than he was put in last year. And I think that bodes really well for Wake's defense.
Conor O'Neill joining us here on the program to kick off the hour. And let's take a look at Duke University. Let's take a look at the Blue Devils. And boy, they've got a couple of mountains to climb. Yeah,
it's really interesting to cover the one program that is kind of solidified. Wake Forest knows where they are in the ACC pecking order. They're coming off an 11-win season. Duke is at the base looking up at that. Mike Elko has made it very clear that he does not want to repeat Wake's success. He wants to look at Duke differently, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is very much the foundational and the building block stage of where that program is right now. They're not gonna, they're not gonna go 0-12. I don't even think they're gonna go 2-10. They do have some talent, but the thing that I've kind of had to remind some fans of, and I've had to remind myself a few times, if the staff really loved every part of this roster. If the staff, really thought that this was a roster that could compete in the future, they wouldn't have 26 commits. It's a roster that is, they're going to get through this season, and there's going to be some attrition. There's going to be some roster turnover. That's just that's the nature of the beast when you take over a college football program, especially now that the NCAA has suspended the 25 player signing cap.
Mm-hmm.
So Duke could go higher than 26. They're already above it. They could go higher. Every school has to be a player in the transfer portal. So you could be looking at Duke's roster next year and be seeing upwards of 30 some scholarship players that are new to the team.
Exactly. And with the suspension of the cap, that could happen all over the place. As we're taking a look at Duke University football on offense, who must take command and why?
I think the writing has been on the wall. We haven't been able to report the winner of the quarterback battle, but basically the quarterback battle going into fall camp was Riley Leonard or Jordan Moore. Both of them are second-year guys. Riley is the more skilled passer. Jordan Moore is one of the most dynamic athletes on the team. He might be the best open field weapon that Duke has, regardless of position. And about halfway through camp, Jordan Moore started working at receiver. So that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the quarterback battle. I don't think it is chiseled into stone that Jordan Moore is a receiver. I think you could see him back at quarterback if Riley struggles or in certain packages. But right now, if Duke, needs to throw the ball to win a game, it looks like it'll be Riley Leonard at quarterback. That was the main question that needed to be answered. It was not the only question.
Mm-hmm.
This is a team that has Jalen Calhoun has been a nice receiver for the last few years. He has something like 141 catches. I think every other receiver on the roster, at least in their time at Duke, has combined for 109 catches. So you've got to answer some questions about who your second, third, fourth, and down the line targets are. We've kind of seen that. There's a part of me that thinks it needs to play out during the season to have a real idea of who's going to step up and make plays. At various times throughout camp, like Eli Pankel has made a couple plays here and there. Samir Hagans has made some really good plays. Daryl Harding Jr. has the best size of any Duke receiver, but he struggles to get separation and to be strong against physical play.
Mm-hmm.
And then, to bring it back to what I was talking about with the quarterbacks, Jordan Moore is a really good receiver. It doesn't take long to see why he was moved to receiver. And I think there's a chance he could put up some legit numbers as their slot receiver this year.
Let's look at this for both teams. How important is it for both Duke and Wake Forest to defend the home turf?
Yeah, it's going to be important. Duke has a weird schedule where there's 6 home and 6 road, and every road game is at least 2 states away. They're taking a lot of flights this year. That means their trips to Northwestern and Kansas out of conference are 2 pretty long trips. And then in the last year of the ACC's divisional format, Duke was either drawing the short stick or the long stick when it came to Coastal Division traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is the long stick as far as long travels. Like they go to Boston College, which they hadn't done in 12 years. That's the one crossover with the Atlantic Division. And then they go to Georgia Tech, Miami, and got it right up here above them. Pittsburgh.
A moment ago, they go to Chicago to face the Northwestern Wildcats in Evanston.
Yeah, it's a lot of long trips for Duke. So they do need to win some home games. They have winnable non-conference home games against Temple and North Carolina A&T. They get UNC at home. They get Virginia Tech at home. I think, and Virginia at home. I think those are games that Duke can win. I'm not saying they'll be favored in them, but they could steal 1 or 2 of those at home and make getting to a bowl a lot more tenable. And I think that's kind of the baseline goal for that program right now. If they get to 6-6 and get a postseason berth, no matter where it is, I think that'd be a really, really successful season. Wake, on the other hand, has 7 home games. Their biggest home game is definitely September 24th. I mean, that's kind of the one that the sun revolves in the Atlantic Division. I know Wake is the defending Atlantic champions, but it just feels like Clemson had one down year and they still hold the title. They're still the team to beat in this last year of the Atlantic Division. And September 24th, Clemson comes to Winston. That'll be interesting to see what the fan dynamic is. Clemson fans travel really, really well.
Yeah, they do.
It's typically really cheap for them to get season tickets to Wake Forest games, come up for that one game, and then sell every other ticket on the secondary market. So we'll see how much orange is behind the Clemson bench that day. Wake is going to have the majority. Wake is coming off an 11-win season. They want to make sure that they show out. They want to make sure they have a home field advantage. The kind of second biggest home game for Wake is that visit from North Carolina in mid-November. That's a game that I'm sure Wake players will not be all that forthcoming with admitting, but the revenge factor will be a massive motivator that week.
Indeed, it will.
They've basically lost the same game to UNC each of the last 2 years, where they get up 3 scores midway through the third quarter and their defense breaks and can't get a stop ever. Their offense kind of has let the foot off the gas, and they've struggled in the last quarter and a half of those games. And so they've blown leads and lost at UNC. So that's going to be a really interesting one. We'll see, ACC standings are going to matter at that point. There's no doubt about that, but it'll also be a game that's very much about let's wash the taste out of our mouths of the last 2 years against that team.
Well, that's one they're going to really want to wash the taste out of their mouths, and I'm going to have fun covering the ACC from where I am and with Conor, with David Glenn, and quite a few others joining me for ACC coverage. That is Conor O'Neill joining me to talk Wake Forest and Duke. We'll be following them all season long. Thank you very much, my friend. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Snowman.
Conor O'Neill joining us here on the program. Don't forget, you can join us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/SIT morning. Back in a flash.
This is Snowman in the Morning.